Welcome back to another episode of the Diabetes Digital podcast hosted by Food Heaven. This is Wendy, the co-founder of Diabetes Digital. I am hopping on to do a quick mini-sode on milks. Which are the best milks for you? There has been so many plant milk waves that people have been riding. Almond milk is one of the most popular ones, but recently there's been pea milk, which I actually love. There's soy milk, there's rice milk, there's oat milk. So a question that we get asked often is, okay, are these actually better than regular milk? So we can just get right into it. Welcome to the Diabetes Digital Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Jess, and we're best friends, registered dietitians, and diabetes educators.
Through our telehealth platform, diabetesdigital.co, we offer accessible and personalized virtual nutrition counseling for people with diabetes and prediabetes.
Visit diabetesdigital.co, that's C-O, to book your first appointment. We accept insurance and offer affordable self-pay options. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Which milk is better for blood sugar? So my answer to the question about which milk is best for you is it depends. It depends on what works best for you because no milk is universally superior. Nutrition is very context specific, especially within the context of like what other foods are you incorporating? Because with the plant milks, if you are eating mostly plant-based, then we have to be very intentional about making sure that you are getting protein in other ways. But if you are not plant-based, then that's not as much of a concern. It really depends on your nutrition needs, also your digestion. A lot of people go for these plant milks because they might have issues digesting dairy, right? So it could be a good alternative in that way. Also, culturally, some people, dairy is not a big part of their culture. And so they're either intolerant or they just don't really like it. And then, of course, you have to pay attention to what feels good to you. There are people, just like there are people who are intolerant to lactose, there are people who are intolerant to soy and to other plant milks. So you really have to listen to your body and figure out which milk your body does best with. Taste is also really important. I would say personally, like I don't drink cow's milk because I don't like the taste unless it is masked by like chocolate, for example. Like I'll have cow's milk if it's like a hot chocolate, but I won't just like drink cow's milk. And they do have their own unique flavor profile. So that's also really important to consider when you think about, okay, which milk should I go with? I'm going to give you all a nutritional breakdown for some of the most popular milks. And I think this is something that's important to consider because, again, if you're eating mostly plant-based, you want to make sure that you're getting enough protein in. If you have diabetes or insulin resistance, oftentimes these milks are used in things like smoothies, right? And so you'll use the milk and you'll blend it with like fruit and maybe you'll put nut butter or you'll put chia seeds or something like that. Some people really just do like the fruit and the milk. And what happens is that if you're blending fruit with almond milk, for example, that's not going to have a lot of protein. So your blood sugars are going to rise a lot more quicker. And in that case, you probably want to add a protein powder to it, or you want to add some yogurt to it, yogurt that has protein in it, like a Greek yogurt, for example, if you're able to tolerate it. So these are some of the considerations. I'm going to start with cow's milk. So cow's milk has about 8 grams of protein per cup. It contains natural lactose. It's rich in calcium, B12, potassium, iodine. It contains a good amount of fat, unless you're going with like a low fat option. And it's great for a protein boost, like if you're including it in your smoothies, with your cereal, if you're adding it to your coffee. How does almond milk fare when compared to cow's milk? So almond milk has about 1 gram of protein, sometimes even less. So 1 gram compared to 8 grams in cow's milk. It's a big difference. And that's why I said that if you're going to be adding almond milk and you want your sugars to be more stable, then you should definitely incorporate some kind of protein into, whatever it is that you're having. If it's cereal, for example, then maybe you're adding some nuts and seeds to that cereal, some nut butter to that cereal so that it has more of a balancing effect with the fat as well that those nuts contain. Almond milk has a very minimal amount of carbohydrates, especially when it's unsweetened. It's very low in carbs. Usually they do fortify it with calcium and vitamin D. And it's pretty light in texture compared to cow's milk. Like I would say it's pretty thin. If you're looking for an option that is low carb, that's a little bit lighter, that has less calories, then almond milk is going to be a good option. But just keep in mind, everything else that I said. And I will say that lighter, lower calorie isn't necessarily better either, because sometimes people associate like, oh, it has less calories, that means it's great. A lot of these almond milks is like, oh, just 30 calories in a cup, but you're going to feel more hungry if you're eating less calories. So with a milk that has more calories, it's going to keep you full for longer. There's nothing wrong with calories. You want to eat calories to sustain your energy throughout the day. So, that would be something to consider. Now, soy milk. Soy milk is the closest plant-based alternative that's similar to dairy because it has more protein. It has 7 grams per cup. Remember, we said dairy has 8. It contains carbohydrates, but it has a good balance with the protein. It's also fortified as well with like some of those nutrients that dairy milk will have. And it's great for people who are looking for a dairy supplement, but they want a similar nutrition profile. If you don't have any allergies or intolerances to soy, then I think soy milk is a great option for a plant-based milk. There's also oat milk, which is really popular now. A lot of people are using the oat creamers and, with their coffee, and that's really taken off. Oat milk tends to be higher in carbs because they're made with oats. They're usually lower in protein unless like a protein powder or something like that is added to the oat milk. It could cause more of a spike with your blood sugar. So that, that's something to consider. If you're using it as a creamer, you're probably not using that much of it. So I don't know that it's going to make that big of an impact on your blood sugars. And, if it's something that you really like and you're not like having, several cups of it a day, it's totally fine. So to recap what I said, if you're going for a milk that you want to have more of a similar nutritional profile to dairy milk, then you should go with the soy milk, right? If you're looking for a plant-based alternative, you could also just have the dairy milk if you tolerate it and you have no issues with it. But soy milk is going to be the most comparable in terms of nutrition profile. If you want something that's lower carb, then the almond milk is fine. Some people do coconut milk, and I just want to note that with coconut milk, it does tend to have a very high saturated fat content, which is not great for your lipids, like your cholesterol. And so there are like lighter versions where it's like a reduced fat option. But generally, I don't recommend coconut milk as a milk that you regularly incorporate. If you're cooking with it, like, if you're making like a stew and you want to add some coconut milk to it, that's different because you're not using as much and it's several servings. But if it's something that you're going to include in your day-to-day, I generally don't recommend coconut milk. And absolutely, if you're lactose intolerant or sensitive, then, the oat, the almond, the soy milk, all of those are really great options. Remember that whatever milk you go with should actually taste good because otherwise you're probably not going to continue using it into the future. So pick the option that you enjoy, the one that you feel good drinking, because there's so many different ways that we can manage our blood sugar and also have the milk that we enjoy or the foods that we enjoy. So I hope that this episode was helpful and I will catch you on the flip. Bye. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're interested in nutrition counseling with one of our expert dietitians to help improve your prediabetes or diabetes, visit us at diabetesdigital.co.
Also, if you found our conversation helpful, do us a favor and rate and review this podcast on iTunes, plus share with someone who might find this helpful. You can also connect with us on Instagram at diabetesdigital.co.
And tune in every Wednesday for practical, inclusive, and culturally humble diabetes insights. We'll catch you later. Bye.